Hi everyone. Let's start off by talking about how to interchange back and forth between fractions, decimals, and percents. They are all just representations of the same number, and we really want to focus on decimals and percents. The fractions we will talk about because we need to know how to do that, but mostly we're going to be working with this. Okay, so notice these arrows. These tell you if you want to go from a fraction to a decimal, you just divide the numerator by the denominator. If you want to go from a decimal to a fraction, you write the decimal as a fraction over 1 and multiply by however many digits there are after the decimal to eliminate the decimal. If you want to go from a decimal to a percent, you're going to move the decimal 2 places to the right and add a percent symbol. If you want to go from a percent to a decimal, then you're going to move the decimal 2 places to the left and drop the percent. Okay, so our first one here, we are going to go from a fraction to a decimal. So a fraction to a decimal. We're just going to get on our calculator, and however your calculator works, we're going to take 19 divided by 25, whoops, and I get 0.76. So I'm going to write this as 0.76. Then to get from a decimal to a percent, I follow this rule here. I move the decimal 2 places to the right and add a symbol. So I move this 2 places to the right, so that becomes 76, and I change it to a percent. Okay, if I want to start with a decimal, if I want to go from a decimal to a fraction, then I write the decimal as a fraction over 1 and multiply the numerator and the denominator by 10 for every number beyond. So I've got 2 numbers beyond, so if I'm going here, I'm going to take 0.45 over 1, and since there are 2 places, I'm going to multiply it by 10 over 10 and by 10 over 10. That gives me 45 over 100, which in your calculator, if you can reduce that, becomes 9 over 20. Then, like we did before, if I want to take this and turn it into a percent, I will follow this rule here. I will move this to the right 2 places, and this becomes 45%. Now, I'm going to tell you, going from here to here, what I do mentally is I turn it into a percent first, because percent means part per 100 or part per 100. So once I get it into a percent, then I know whatever this number is over 100. Okay. All right, so let's see what else we're going to work with. Let's look at starting with a percent. If I start with a percent and want to turn it into a decimal, then I get rid of this, move this 2 places to the left, so that becomes 0.62. And then lastly, as I said, I don't have to go from decimal to a fraction. I can go directly from percent to fraction by drop the percent and divide by 100. So I can just take this and make it 62 over 100, which becomes 31 over 50. Okay, so here's what you do if you start with a fraction, if you start with a decimal, if you start with a percent. If you have not already done so, I would recommend that you do the rest of these on your own, try them, and then come back and do this. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. All right, if I start here, if I start with a decimal, I want to turn it into a percent by moving that 2 places to the right, so this becomes 315%. Once I have done that, then I can turn this into a fraction. So this just becomes 315 over 100, which reduces to 63 over 20, which you can turn into a mixed number, but we really don't deal with that. It actually works out to 3 and 3 over 20. But again, we're not going to really deal with that, so, but I'll show it to you. Now what I do need here is I do need to know how to turn this into a decimal. So 7 1/5 is really 7 1/5, or 7 plus 1/5. So I know if I'm going to go from here to a decimal, then it is just 7 1/5. 1 divided by 5 is 0.2. Now if I want to turn this into a percent, of course, I'm going to take this 2 places to the right. I don't have a digit here, so I'm going to have to fill it in with the 0. So this becomes 720%. Now one of the ways you can check yourself as you're doing this is, and I'll put this up at the top, 100% is equal to 1. So if you have a number larger than 1, your percent is going to be over 100%. If you have a number that is less than 1, then your percent is going to be less than 1. Okay, 0.4%. I'm going to move this over 2 places. Once again, drop this, and I always have to fill in a 0. So this becomes 0.004. Okay, if I want to turn it into a fraction, then I can write this as 0.4 divided by 100. And again, if I want to reduce that fraction in my calculator, it reduces to 1 over 250. Okay. All right, if I want to go from a decimal to a percent, I move this to the right twice, so this becomes 1.6%. Then if I want to turn this into a fraction, this gives me 1.6 divided by 100, and that reduces to 2 over 125. Okay, 3/8, if I take 3 divided by 8 in my calculator, I get 0.375. To turn that into a percent, move the decimal 2 places to the right, add the percent sign, 37.5%. If I start with 225%, again, get rid of this, 2 places to the left, that gives me 2.25. 225% is more than 100%, so this number should be larger than 2. And finally, if I take 225 divided by 100, I get, whoops, five, 9/4. Whoops, can't read it. Okay, which is a little bit over 2. Okay, once again, as you're looking at this, these are the ones that we're the most concerned about. So make sure you know how to go back and forth, because this whole unit is about percents and percent of change and that sort of thing. All right, see you on the next video.